Who is with Vinny Fiorenza? There's a lot he doesn't know. There's a lot he wants to know. This is a podcast where he tries to learn from people who know things he doesn't. He'll be focusing on people from the worlds of business, entertainment, and the arts. His guests are people he finds fascinating and that he believes will bring value to others. Join him on the journey on finding out who is.
Who is Emily Marsh? Emily Marsh is a very talented, funny actress and puppeteer. In this episode, we get into some topics like her love for old British TV, her time spent working in a cafetorium, and maybe most importantly, the time she used the bathroom in the subway of Tokyo, Japan. So please join us in this episode of Who is Emily Marsh? Hey guys, we are here with Emily Marsh. She's a puppeteer and 100 million other things. Let's get into it. Tell us a little about yourself, Emily.
Yeah, so definitely, kind of like you said, jack of all trades, by necessity, not by choice.
There we go.
But yeah, basically went to school for acting, and then first job I got out of college was puppeteering. And so from then on, it's been like 12 years of basically getting to do both and do some pretty cool projects.
We're excited to get into all of that. Where are you from? Where'd you start off? That's the origin story of this superhero journey.
Oh, man. So this origin story starts in the really beautiful little town called Washington, D.C. I don't know if you've heard of it. The president lives there.
Yeah? Oh, no, really?
But yeah, it was basically, that's where it started, and then proceeded to move to New York for a little bit, after college.
When was that? Oh, after college. Did you go to college in D.C.?
So I actually went to college at a place in Richmond, Virginia called VCU, which no one knows what it is unless you're a basketball fan.
Okay, yeah.
Because we had a Cinderella story a couple years ago while I was in college.
That means you won the whole thing?
No.
Oh, you just made it?
No, it was wow, this team really should have sucked more, but they made it.
That's good. That's a great
to
story.
The fourth. Yeah. And it's the only good thing that basically happened from our college. I'm just kidding. It's a really amazing college. I'm so sorry for anybody watching this who went to VCU.
When you were in DC, what was when you grew up, what were some of your hobbies? Did you have any unique things that were going on with you?
This is the part where I really wish that I could say it was oh yeah, I was super into puppets even back then, or super into performing. And I gotta say, I was a big Shakespeare nerd.
Okay.
Because my dad definitely wishes he was British. And so we were raised accordingly, watching old school British TV.
Oh my
and
God.
Then also
what?
Oh my gosh.
Give us some.
Where do we even begin? Are You Being Served? Have you watched that show?
No.
Why would you have?
Yeah,
You're
that's a good, yeah.
You're under 50. Faulty Towers, Monty Python.
I know Monty Python, but yeah, not for me.
So yeah, no, this was awful for me as a child because I'd go into school and be like, guys, did you watch Faulty Towers? And they're like, we don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I blame my parents for my very educated upbringing in British television and media.
So the nerddom started then.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you were baptized in nerddom very early.
Absolutely. That's I come good. By my nerd cred very
yeah.
Lord of the Rings, Star Wars,
that's great.
Star Trek. I'm trying to think of anything
Any
else.
other Star things?
I know there's so many of them. Battlestar Galactica was later. That wasn't from childhood. I can't claim that.
Okay. Got it. I just laugh. It's so funny. Sort of hot. But after college, did you go straight to LA or what? Yeah,
no.
Tell me about that.
So I actually. It's just so funny. After college, where'd you go straight to? I went to Cincinnati, Ohio, Vinny.
Oh, okay.
That's where I went.
Yeah, there we
to go do puppets.
Oh, puppeteering, and I hear that's a very strong community out there.
Oh, absolutely. Tons of money in puppets in Cincinnati. I'll tell you that. My rent was $250 a month, and I was being paid, I think, $350 a week or something like that. Oh, my gosh. But it was the best experience coming out of college because I think so many of my friends went straight to New York, being on the East Coast. Some went to LA. And I think
chose
everybody
a different path.
Yeah, and it was kind of nice because they go there and it's an intense market to just jump into when you're basically 22 and you don't know what you're doing. and having like a mental breakdown about it. And then I went to Cincinnati where I like kind of had this job like performing. It was like very nice to be coddled in that way. It's like, oh, I'm performing full time, even though that full time is like driving a van, setting up a show in a cafetorium for a bunch of 10-year-olds.
I would love to see that.
Dude, I think one of my proudest reviews that I've ever gotten was from a janitor, like watching the show, and I was playing like a sugared up kid, and his review was, he was like, that drunk girl, man, give her an Oscar. That was great. And I was like, high praise from the janitor in the back of the cafetorium.
Do you know, I've never heard that word, cafetorium. Are those only in Cincinnati?
Oh, man. No, they're all over the Midwest. You got to have a very rural kind of like high school or elementary school situation.
Like they mix the food area with the where they do the...
You know, you're really performing in the height of luxury when you can smell the food being prepped, like for lunch. You know, like the ones where they just put it into the microwave, like the pizzas that are like crusty and like just clinging to the side of the container. Yeah, just smelling that while you're performing.
You still have trauma?
Oh, I mean, it just takes me back. But maybe in a good way, which I don't know what that means.
You smell the pizza?
Yeah, basically I'm like, oh, I'm ready to perform at 6:30 a.m., baby. Let's go.
So somehow this journey led to you being wanting to be an actress on screen.
In all of that. Technically, the actress was first, and then it was like, oh, I took this weird side road, or what I thought would be a side road of puppeteering, just like the job, like one job before I like get back to what I really want to do, and then cut to it was like, oh man, like 10 years later, and I'm still doing puppetry.
Well, you're good at it.
It's true, and honestly, as it turns out, it's like very interesting work because, I don't know, I was trying to think about that on the way over. It's like the weird circumstances that puppeteering gets you into, acting too. Yeah. But it's like that one random time where I puppeteered with Allen Iverson, of all people, in Philadelphia.
My God. What a
and you're like, that's only a puppeteer story. Only a puppeteer story.
That's true. That's funny. We'll ask about that story. But who are your biggest inspirations as an actress? Like, you know, like you're an actress. Who are, like, I don't know, who convinced you to take that path?
That's a great question. I think it would have to be a combination. Obviously, there's some British actors in there, of course. Probably like John Cleese and like Monty Python. The fact that they could be so ridiculous, like so over the top, and also that humor was just so bizarre, but somehow just resonated with so many people. Like just full commitment.
But to be honest, that wasn't the answer I was expecting at all.
Oh my gosh.
Happy we got it though.
All right, let me think of a better answer.
No, that was a phenomenal answer. It's the truth. Thank you.
No, and I'm trying to think of like who else is like an inspiration of puppeteer performers.
Yeah, let's see it. That was actually literally going to be my next question.
Oh, really? Yeah, puppeteer performers that are inspirations. I mean, I definitely watched Dark Crystal at way too young an age, like even before I saw the Muppets. And so I was terrified of it, but I loved it. I was drawn to that movie for some reason. I don't even
know what that is.
Oh,
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
At the end of this podcast, I'm giving you a list. Where to begin with Dark Crystal? Basically, it was Jim Henson had done the Muppets. Yeah. He's done Sesame Street, and he said, guys, we're going to do it my way. We're going to do a movie that I want to do. And that movie was a fantasy movie that was, it's three creatures. You've got the Mystics, you have the Skeksis, you have the Gelflings. It basically was his Lord of the Rings, but puppet version.
Wow.
And there are certain parts of it where, like, he didn't even want to put in, like, some of the characters are dubbed. Like, they're speaking English, but he didn't want them to speak English. Like, he wanted the Skeksis to speak Skeksy and put, like, subtitles at the bottom. Like, he was like, this is my masterpiece. And it kind of did well, but it's definitely a niche kind of like movie. But that movie definitely had a big impact on me as a kid. And I think just the puppeteers out of that, I mean, Frank Oz is just so incredible. He's great in that movie. And then obviously with the Star Wars thing, like Yoda, like you don't even think of that as being a puppet. And that's like a testament to how good of a puppeteer he is. It's just a character. So that's what I would say. John Cleese and Frank Oz. What a weird combo to get
and
to.
And Yoda.
And Yoda. And Yoda himself, you know.
The Yoda. So how long you been involved with puppeteering? You said 10 years, but like give us the origin of that. Like was it through Cincinnati or you started before then?
So it technically, I had done Avenue Q in college, and that was the first time I'd ever done puppets before. And it was like, oh, wow, this is like super interesting, this media. I think also, too, getting to the end of acting school, there's like a lot of emphasis on, okay, well, what do you look like? That's what you're going to play. It's like I remember coming to LA for a showcase, and there was a casting director who just went around the room, and he was like, you could play a cop. You couldn't play a cop. You could play a cop. And I think there was like a lot of disillusionment with being like, is this all I can do? What I look like? And puppetry felt like a really cool avenue where it's like, oh, it's actually all about technical skill, and there's no limit on what you can do.
I love that. Yeah.
And so doing Avenue Q was like the introduction to that. And then the Cincinnati job, which was also a great lesson in, I went to, there's something called UPTAs on the East Coast, where as an actor, it's awful.
Don't know.
Oh my gosh. PTSD from that experience. You basically go out on stage for like 400 people, perform a monologue and a song. They like time you, and then you walk off stage. And it's probably like 300 actors they see in one day doing the same thing.
Like American Idol.
Basically, yeah. Except somehow like more terrifying because everybody there is way more professional. There's no duds. And from that, I really wanted to work at this place in Cincinnati. It was the only puppet company, and they did not call me back from that audition.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, I was like, you know, I bet I don't have to take this no for an answer. And so after that sort of conference, I emailed them and basically asked, oh, hey, just randomly, are you having auditions for your season? Like, I just would be really interested to work with you guys. And that's when they said, oh, yeah, we are having auditions, which was the callbacks they invited people to from that conference. And they were like, yeah, just come to Cincinnati, like, audition. And so I did, and then that was the first job I booked.
Wow.
And from then on, I always learned, I was like, never take the first no as an answer. There's probably another way.
Listen, kids. Yeah. That's
the very big piece of advice I always give is you're always like, you know, within reason, be respectful, but always see if you can follow up.
I always say this out loud. If you don't ask, you don't get. So
absolutely.
You gotta follow through. So speaking of that, and you know, being audacious and having that type of gall, how'd you get involved with Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Oh, that's also a really good story.
Yeah,
and freaks me out because the chance that I wouldn't have been a part of it, that was 99.9% of the chance of what should have happened from that audition. Because they were doing a Mystery Science Theater live tour, and I was auditioning as a puppeteer for it because they were looking for singing puppeteers. So I go in and I audition, very similar to like, I don't know, the New York auditioning scene is very much like, hey, come in here, you got 2 minutes to impress us, and then there's 50 people behind you. So the chances of actually like being called back from it or getting cast are like pretty low. And I remember going in, and I was a fan of Mystery Science Theater since I was a kid, and usually it's like, you know, they don't usually have creatives for like the general audition. They'll pass them on to the creatives for the callbacks. But Joel was there behind the table. And so I remember just being like a little starry-eyed, being like, oh my gosh, he's right there. So at the end of the audition, and it was a pretty intense one because it was a song, impressions, a monologue, and I think there was one other thing, like a little bit of an improv scene. Like they were just asking for a lot of range.
It's pretty crazy doing all that in one audition.
And remembering all of it. Oh my gosh.
Give a lot of credit to you creatives.
It's true, but even after like all that prep of doing all that stuff, the thing that actually got me the callback was at the end of the audition, I was like, you know what? I bet a lot of people have been kissing Joel's ass. Like everybody's fans of this show, or like I'm sure they're like really just hamming it up. And so in my mind, in that split second, I was like, all right, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. And so at the end of my audition, I was like, Joel, I got to say, like, I've been a fan of Mystery Science Theater since I was a kid. Like, me and my brother and my dad, we all watched it together. However, my mom, I've got to be honest, when I told her I was auditioning for this, she said, really, that show got a national tour? And everybody cracks up behind the table, including Joel. I, like, get to, like, walk out and, you know, laughter behind me. And then I get the callback. And at the callback, Joel goes, he was like, you know, man, like, what you said about your mom, that was just so funny, man. Like, That's so cool you said that. And I was like, well, Joel, now that you brought it up, I have to be honest. She actually said, how did that stupid show get a national tour?
That's so funny.
Again, laughs behind the table, and basically then a couple weeks later learned I've been booked. And on the tour where we hung out with Joel a lot, he was like, man, I just thought it was so funny. Your story about your mom. You're like, not the impressions, not the song, not the monologue.
He was like, so hard, and
that quip at the end was really good. We just had to book you off of that. And I was like, man, a great story, but also terrifying.
It is. That's the way life works in a lot of scenarios. For our audience who is not from the nerd space, what is Mystery Science Theater 3000? Also, who's Joel?
Yes.
Give us the...
All excellent questions. Yeah. I think I'm going to approach this the same way I do when I tell family that I do this. Yeah, and most of the time they go, what? Yep. What are you doing? So Mystery Science Theater is a pretty brilliant premise where it's a guy has been trapped on a spaceship out in space, and mad scientists are trying to make him insane by showing him bad movies. So he builds two robot friends to riff and make fun of the movie so he doesn't go insane. And that was basically the premise. That's the story to couch that the show is basically taking bad movies and riffing on them. And that's almost the whole episode. Like, each episode is a full movie of them making fun of it.
Is it like, what age frame is this like really made for, or there isn't one?
So it was made in the late 80s, early 90s, and the reason they made it was because cable was becoming a thing. And basically all of these networks were like, we need shows that take up like 2-hour chunks, like late at night, 2 in the morning. And so Mystery Science Theater was like, wow, we can get all of these movies super cheap from studios. So a lot of them are like black and white movies. There's a lot of ones from the 70s. Like just a wide variety of movie that are just bad. They're so bad. And they could get them for super cheap and then fill up all this time on cable super early in the morning. Now, that was the time where a lot of college students would be partying. You would watch Mystery Science Theater when you're like, oh, it's time to go to bed, but like, here's something fun to watch while we're like all just chilling out. And it got basically a cult following from that, and then really blew up in the 90s, basically.
That's amazing. I'm not from this world, so I never heard of it till you.
Vinny, you are among good company. I always tell people, I'm always like, are you a nerd? Then you'll know what the show is. If you don't feel bad.
Yeah, no.
It means you're not a nerd.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which, what are you doing?
I feel like I'm a nerd, but then the more I learn, maybe I'm not.
Well, nerds have little niche kingdoms, as it turns out.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's what I'm learning. Yeah, I'm in my own world. You were casted for this show, and this season had Patton Oswalt on it. Like, what was that like working with him?
Well, it's so funny. Here's the dirty, dirty secret, Vinny. I never got to work with Patton Oswalt.
Oh, get out of here. That's
even though we
funny.
have scenes together, but it was on green screen. They filmed here in LA, and they also filmed in Philadelphia. So I was on the Philadelphia team. Patton was here in LA, so I never got to meet Patton. Except we've done now live streams, like Zoom events, basically when we release episodes. And that was cool because Patton Oswalt was on there and Felicia Day was, and I was definitely trying to be super cool, but inside I was definitely geeking out.
That's great.
And actually, Patton Oswalt is from my area, the Nova area.
Oh, that's a start. Speaking of that, I actually delivered food to his house.
Did you really?
Yeah, when I was doing Postmates a couple of years ago, I thought it was great. I was like, I know you, sir.
Sir, here is your burrito. Yeah. Enjoy.
I think it was something healthy, to be honest. But
that's right. No, let's spread this rumor. Patton Oswalt ordering Del Taco a little too much.
Rumor spread. But it was pretty funny, and I thought I remember him from King of Queens, really.
Oh,
that's my non-nerd way to go about that. Yeah. Now, did you perform in the theater as well? Like, what's the story with that? Like, was there like how did it work?
Yeah, so the way that the actual filming was set up, and obviously I came in at a time when it was a lot more DIY because the first 2 seasons when they first brought it back were Netflix, and that was when Jonah Ray was hosting. And he still is with this new season. It's that like he gets most of the episodes I get a couple. They're like splitting the host responsibilities basically. So for them, I think it was like way more of a production, like way more, I mean, it was just Netflix doing things versus this way, which was actually kind of cool because DIY was how it started. Like Joel is the creator. He basically had just built the robots out of stuff he found at the Salvation Army. Like it was as grunge and DIY as it could be when it started.
That's great.
So it was kind of cool.
I love that, but big startup.
Oh, for sure. And then also something like that gets picked up. It's like such a cool Cinderella story. So it was fun to be back with it where it was like, oh, we're like kind of back where we began.
At VCU.
At VCU in a weird little theater.
Cinderella story.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. I see what you did there.
There we are.
So the way they set it up in the theater was that we basically were sitting in chairs, like I think they were just folding chairs basically, and pretending to look at a screen, which was a green screen, but to the side was the actual movie and a teleprompter going with the riffs. So it was this weird sort of situation where you're pretending to look above you, but really you're trying to look out of the corner of your eye to the left at the actual movie, the time codes, and when you're supposed to be saying the riff. And I'd actually come to it doing the show live, which is in front of a live audience. You have the movie there, you have people reacting, and you do it like 90 times. And this time it was so weird. Like film is always so weird compared to theater because you're like, oh, we're done? Like, that was 2 takes and we're good? Are you guys sure? Versus theater, you're like, you're going to run it into the ground.
Of course.
So that was, and also it's so disconnected. Nobody obviously can laugh when you're riffing and filming. So that always gives you a weird feeling.
Gives you different skills than a couple other people, too. Like, I feel like that exposure to doing those types of things are so different.
It's true. And it also realized how, like, with film, it's such a trusting relationship because you don't know if it's actually funny. You kind of have to look to the director and be like, hey, I'm trusting you. Was that good? Like, what did you see on your side of things? And the thing that was super nice was Jonah was the director for the episode.
Nice.
And he knew what it was like to be on the other side of it. And so he was always super great about, like, as soon as it was cut, he was like, guys, that was so funny. Like, this moment was really great. Or would be like, hey, let's just take this one moment. I think you guys can do it a little bit better. You felt in very safe hands.
What's the fandom like in that world?
The fandom? Well, first of all, there are a lot of them. The first fans were from the Midwest. And here's what I've learned about Mystery Science Theater fans. They just want to give you stuff. It's so kind. Like the amount of people have been like, do you have a P.O. box? Like, I want to send you some coffee that my husband roasted. We love you on Mystery Science Theater. It's like a nerdy Midwestern culture where everybody's just trying to be helpful all the time to you. Basically, yeah. Can we mail the peach? How about a hot dish? Can you get a hot dish in the mail? So it's truly like the squishiest and most loveliest of fandoms to be a part of. And, like, I definitely love nerd franchises that are, like, a little more, like, harder cutting. Like, I can only imagine being somebody involved with Rick and Morty fandom.
Oh, yeah.
Where their fans are notorious for, like, I mean, the media itself is a little more biting and sarcastic. And so it makes sense that those are your fans. And so it's nice that Mystery Science Theater is a first fandom to be, like, involved with on the production side. It's very nice. People are very, very nice.
That's so cool. That's pretty interesting. Like, you know, people still reach out to you.
Oh, yeah. I constantly have DMs, constantly have emails, and most of the time it's people just being like, hey, I really loved your work on the new season. Like, keep up the good work. Just want to let you know.
That's
like,
amazing.
Very involved, which is so fantastic and overwhelming.
Yeah, it's got to feel nice, you know. So with both on the puppeteering side and as a, you know, I guess theatrical actress, what would be some dream jobs for you?
Oh, I mean, I think there are some nerd franchises. Like, I would love to think it's like, oh man, I got to be a part of Mystery Science Theater, like something I love from my childhood. I would love to be able to be like, all right, cool. What other things could I be in from my childhood? Like, if they rebooted them, it's like, I mean, I could die happy if they brought back Buffy the Vampire Slayer and, like, I got to be a bit character on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That'd be so great. Sick. Been watching, shout out to Strange New Worlds, the new Star Trek show.
Got it.
That show, so cool. I would die to be a part of it in any way possible. Like, even if they were like, you have to be a prosthetic alien, no one will know it's you, I would love that. That would be so cool. Just all of these like nerd franchises that are kind of getting like a new coat of paint and a new interpretation. It's like, it'd be so cool to be a part of any of that.
Yeah, let's get Emily on these. Let's go.
Strange New Worlds. Oh my gosh. My fiance would be so thrilled too.
Oh my God,
I would get so many points. So fingers crossed for that.
Congrats on that. When are you guys getting married?
Oh man, we're getting married actually in it's 2 months, I think.
Get out of here. That's so soon.
I know.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy.
Are you ready?
I think so. You know,
Good.
there's no way to know for sure, but I feel 99.9% ready.
Will there be puppets at the event?
There will not be puppets at the event.
Okay.
I kind of have a strict rule of, if puppets are your professional life, I kind of like to keep them out of my personal life.
Got it. All right.
To a certain extent. Obviously, it's like puppet people when they hang out.
They
You know, you're gonna like sometimes bring out a puppet.
Oh, so puppets make appearances in social gatherings.
You know, sometimes they do, and I'm not opposed. Like, it's fun, you know, like, but there has to be a limit. It's you can't have puppets in the bedroom.
Yeah, okay.
I heard that rule from somebody, and I was like, I think that's a good rule. There needs to be a distance there.
Yeah, you can't cap the puppeting.
It's you know.
Yeah, they stay out of the bedroom. You lock them out.
Let's just put it this way: there's a difference between a puppeteer and a puppet enthusiast. It's a big difference there.
Okay. Cool.
You know.
Yeah, explain that. Let's hear it. You can't just make that statement.
That's true. Do people not know the difference between puppeteers and puppet enthusiasts? Oh, let me explain.
I'm sitting here nodding.
Put it this way. I think it's the difference between somebody who's like, wow, I love puppets. I've been building them for years in my basement. Oh no, I don't puppeteer with them. I just build them and they're my friends. And you're like, oh no, we've crossed a line here. Once again, you never want to make blanket statements about a community, but it's like any community, you've got the outliers, and it's like best to say, wow, that sounds super great, and then kind of back away slowly. You know, let them do their thing on their own.
Got it. You were just recently in Japan.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and what the experience was like across the board, even the culture, whatever.
When I was in Japan, I have to recommend it as being, it's a vacation that sounds super exotic when you tell people. You're like, I went to Japan. People are like, oh, that's so cool. Must have been like crazy to negotiate your way in the language. It's such an easy country to travel in. It's crazy because they have directions everywhere. There are directions on the sidewalk to tell you which side to walk on. In the subway, New York should have this. I'm taking a stand. New York should learn from Japan.
Petition, Emily.
You know how you have like the staircases when you're coming out of the subway?
I was just there, so yeah.
Yeah, and everybody just runs up it like it's just a flood. It's uncontrolled. Sometimes you're pushing your way down because if a train just let out. Japan, that would not happen because there's signs on the ground that says, you're going up, you're this side of the staircase. Are you coming down? You're on this side of the staircase. And sometimes it switches. Sometimes it's left, sometimes it's right.
Take notes, New York, please.
Also I did not...
Efficiency is good. We're a big fan of efficiency.
I gotta say, I also gotta give a shout out. So, bathrooms in subways in New York are disgusting places that no one should go unless it's an absolute emergency.
Got it.
Bathrooms in Japan's like subway stations, amazing. Heated seats, bidets, like just pristine. So New York also needs to learn from that because that was pretty amazing to be like, wow, I'm in a major city and I know that there is a comfortable bathroom like 10 minutes away.
Every bathroom has a bidet.
Every bathroom has a bidet. Every single one has a heated toilet seat.
Like in this, wow, this is information. I might have to make a trip.
I mean,
trip to the bathroom.
For the toilets alone, I cannot recommend it enough. Also the food and the culture and, you know, there's a lot else there. But the toilets, though, Vinny, the toilets. Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable. Some have privacy sounds. You can turn on a little button, and it's like birds chirping and water falling so that you're in a private space.
Are we still in the subway at this point?
Oh, you're still in the subway, baby. Wow. This is all available to everybody at any time. Wow. It's pretty great.
This is good. This is really important information. I'm so happy we got to this point.
Me too. I'm glad to give this PSA to America. Toilet. There's a whole industry in
Get on your shit.
toilet tourism. I'm starting it right now.
Wow, we're gonna speak after this about the toilet tourism. This is amazing. So I'm gonna go through a few quicker questions.
Okay.
You grew up in DC, so you experienced all 4 seasons. What's your favorite season?
Ooh, favorite season? Fall.
Okay, cool.
I know, it's like a speed round now. I'm ready.
Yeah, I like this competitiveness. Favorite cocktail?
Ooh, anything with mezcal in it?
Wow, oh, you really went full LA.
Oh, I know. Well, that was New York too, though. I feel like that was.
It's here.
I'm trying to remember. It's like 2017. It's the summer. You're working in restaurants, and everybody is just flipping out for rosé and mezcal in New York.
Yep. Favorite TV show?
Oh, favorite TV show? Oh, I love a woman yelling, so I got to shout out Veep on HBO. I could watch Julie Louis-Dreyfus yell all day long.
Oh, that's great.
Also a good role with Patton Oswalt in that show.
There we are. Do you play any instruments?
I did grow up playing violin.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Japan, I don't know.
I know. I brought it down for some reason. I was just like, I did play violin. Like, it's an embarrassing thing.
No,
it's more
why?
that
Yeah.
I played it, and now I kind of lie and say that I do still play it, but I'm not as talented as I once was in my younger years.
Yeah, it's sometimes, I did piano. That was not, no. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, technically, but not anymore.
No way. Do you have any pets?
Don't have any pets, but my parents have a pet that's basically my sister, which is Bonnie, a golden retriever.
Oh, are you an only child?
I actually have a brother,
Oh,
but
okay,
she
cool.
outranks both of us now.
Got it.
We are lower than the dog, for
That's
sure.
amazing.
100%.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be? I know you definitely have an answer for this. I don't. It's just one though.
Okay, I know, that's the tough one. If I had a superpower, I feel like it would be that I could persuade anybody to do anything.
Manipulation.
I know, that's a dark one, but I feel like it'd be really useful in your life.
Of course. Yeah.
As long as you just couldn't use it for evil.
That's a good. You like boundaries.
It's
good.
true, and I like to think that I wouldn't use it for evil, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. It might go from.
That's
it might be
true.
a superpower, super negative power. But
That's true. Anti-heroes are big right now.
yeah,
So,
they're massive. So this was cool. We had a blast. I'm really happy Emily came out. Where could the world find you? And I don't know if you want people to find you or not, but if you do,
you know what?
The scoop.
The more the better. The more hot
Nice.
dishes, the better.
Bring on the hot dishes,
Absolutely.
casseroles.
You can find me on Instagram now. Just got on TikTok. It's terrifying, but I love it. I'm still on Twitter. I'm holding out. And then also we all the episodes of the season 13 of Mystery Science Theater, they can be found on the Gizmoplex. That's spelled Gizmoplex. I'm gonna be really embarrassed if I misspelled it, but it is possible.
It sounded right.
I'm
not a speller.
Exactly. If you Google it, they'll direct you to the right place. Who needs to spell anymore? But yeah, they have all the new seasons up there, and the old ones for free. So highly recommend.
Wow.
Any fans, check it out.
Yeah, check it out, especially Emily's. And but yeah, it was grateful to have you here. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it
So
a
good
lot.
to be here.